Right now, 7, it is Groundhog Day. We are going to go live to Sun Prairie, where Jimmy will be making his prediction in just a couple minutes.
And we're going to be seeing a very mild Sunday, but the mild weather won't last forever. All the details coming up.
And later, we got details on the new Trump administration's tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. This is Weekend Mornings. And once again, we thank you for joining us. And we start this new hour. Going to go to a live look of the festivities taking place in Sun Prairie. We are expecting to see Jimmy make his prediction on if we will have an early spring or not in just a few minutes, and we will bring you that live when it does happen. And just about half an hour ago, Punxsutawney Phil, well, he made his prediction. Take a look at this.
It's Groundhog Day, and maybe life is on a loop, but I miss my burrow. I miss my coop. So I'm headed back down. There's a shadow up here. Get ready for 6 more weeks of winter this year.
Now, while this is all fun, don't take these forecasts at face value. Yesterday, we had NOAA. They had published a list of accurate groundhogs list. Sun Prairie Jimmy came in at number 6 with 60%, and Punxsutawney Phil barely cracked the list at number 17 with a dismal 35% accuracy. Well, let's go straight to the forecast with Jacob Montesano and what we're going to be having in this area. You're saying that we might be having an early spring. That's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, the cloudy skies are expected to last, and based on those numbers you just mentioned, it looks like we should be trusting Jimmy more. And with the early spring that Jimmy's probably going to predict, I have a good feeling about the upcoming weeks. Now, as we take a look at the current radar, we did have some passing flurries this morning, but they have mostly cleared out. Still seeing some slippery roads, but cloudy skies are in the forecast for really the entire day. We may see a few peaks of sunshine later, but beyond that, expect very cloudy skies. However, temperatures are going to be very, very mild. Right now, the temperatures are pretty close to what we see as the average high. And it's the morning hours, lower 30s in Madison, 20s in central Wisconsin, but it's hard to find a better, Groundhog's Day morning considering it is still roughly the middle of winter. Winds are also very calm, and that's going to continue throughout the day. Overall, even without the sunshine, it's going to be a very, very nice day, and highs will be in the middle 40s, could even flirt with some 50s for a few areas. Again, very calm winds. That's going to be a similar forecast to you folks in La Crosse. We are going to see some precipitation overnight, but during the day today, we should be dry. 40s across the board, maybe highs only in the 30s for far northern areas. But I'll talk about that precipitation tonight and another chance of precipitation later in the week. Both details coming up a bit later.
All right, Jacob, thank you. We'll check back in just a bit. Topping our news on Saturday, the Democratic National Committee held an election to name their next party chair. Among the candidates running for the job included Wisconsin State Chair Ben Wickler. He received just over 134 votes, losing to Minnesota Party Chair Ken Martin, who himself received a little more than 246. Here's what Martin had to say.
He has done an incredible job. I think Wisconsin Democrats are behind him 100%. I think it speaks a lot that every Wisconsin DNC member voted for him. But I'm actually a little shocked and surprised that the DNC did not take this opportunity to put Ben in charge. Ben is quantifiably, excellent at what he does.
Now, Wickler will remain in Wisconsin to lead the party locally, saying that he thanks those who worked on his campaign and urged supporters to look ahead. He also said in a statement, quote, Wisconsin's April 1st state Supreme Court race will determine the future of abortion access, union rights, freedom, and democracy in the Badger State. Let's take a breath and get back to work. Out west in California, big news last night. An oil refinery caught on fire. A public health advisory and shelter-in-place order were in effect for the immediate area surrounding the facility. The fire injured 6 workers and 4 needed to be hospitalized. As of 5 o'clock last night, the fire had been contained to only that site. Let's take a live look now at the White House. President Trump sparking this weekend a potential trade war between the U.S. and his 2 closest economic allies, Mexico and Canada. This after announcing a 25% tariff on most goods from those 2 countries. The president also announced a 10% tariff on Chinese goods. As CBS's Christian Benvenides reports, the move is likely to raise the price of goods for many Americans.
The tariffs levied against Mexico, Canada, and China are set to go into effect on Tuesday. They could lead to a rise in the price of cars, energy, spirits, lumber, and across the agriculture sector. President Donald Trump says they're necessary and in response to illegal immigration, illicit fentanyl, and trade deficits.
Tariffs don't cause inflation, they cause success. Was big success. So we're going to have great success. There could be some temporary short-term disruption, and people will understand that.
Mexico and Canada are set to face 25% tariffs, with the exception of Canadian energy at 10%. China will face 10% tariffs. The three are the U.S.'s biggest trading partners.
Tonight, I am announcing Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has already retaliated and said the country was also considering non-tariff measures, including some related to critical minerals and energy. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said retaliatory tariffs are also in the works. The Nonpartisan Tax Foundation says tariffs could cost the average American family about $800 a year. Christian Benavides, CBS News.
China has vowed corresponding countermeasures to the tariffs without announcing specifics. They've also said they would file a case against the U.S. with the World Trade Organization. Got some continued news out of Philadelphia with a plane that crashed into a neighborhood Friday night. And this latest air traffic incident involved a medevac jet, causing a fiery explosion on the ground. At least 7 people were killed. Philadelphia's mayor had this to say for the victims and their families.
I want to be very clear that the city of Philadelphia, we mourn their loss, and they are in our thoughts and in our prayers.
The jet was carrying 6 people, including a pediatric patient and her mother. Officials say the girl was being treated for an illness at Shriners Children's Hospital and was returning home to Mexico. At least 1 person was killed on the ground and more than a dozen are injured. Time now is 7:07. Still ahead, we go back live to Sun Prairie for Jimmy the Groundhog's Groundhog Day prediction. Plus, Jacob is back with the full first warn forecast. You're watching Weekend Mornings.
All right, so we are 30 seconds away now.
Hey, welcome back. We are looking live again at Sun Prairie, where the ceremony is taking place with Jimmy the Groundhog set to give his prediction on if we will have an early spring or 6 more weeks of winter. We're going to listen in to the ceremony and see if we can hear what happens.
Word from Jimmy, and this is a difficult process, not for Jimmy. Jimmy's very good at this, of saying what's on his mind. Yeah, he's ready. As you can tell, his choices are, is it cloudy or is it sunny? He does not like days when it's partly cloudy, partly sunny, because he's not sure and he's watching his paws to see if he sees a shadow. Today, I don't think it's going to be complicated, but let me get down there and hear what Jimmy has to say. All right, Jimmy, you're looking good this morning. You're looking good. All right, what do you think? Yeah? Okay, I'll tell him. And how about the weather? Okay. This is an easy one this year. Jimmy, first of all, wants to thank all of you, all of his loyal supporters, for coming out and being with him this morning. He appreciates that. The rest of the year, the other 364 days, he gets no attention. But today, he's a big deal. And us politicians, we know how that goes, so we can appreciate Jimmy. Jimmy has now given me his forecast, and he said he's looked around, he's sitting out here in the square. Sometimes the sun is behind the buildings, but today he can see that there's no question about it. He looked around, he did not see his shadow, therefore he says early spring. Yeah, he's excited.
That's very good news, very good news. Listening there in Sun Prairie Jimmy giving the prediction in early spring because he saw no shadow this morning. Let's go to Jacob now with the full first warn forecast, probably a little bit more accurate.
Yeah, but I also, based on those data, I trust Jimmy more than Phil. And Phil said we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter, so I'm thinking we're going to have an early spring. I trust Jimmy in that prediction. Now, as we take a look at the 3 things you need to know, very mild temperatures today, but then temperatures will be back near average with cooler temperatures overall for the rest of the week. Then we're going to see that wintry mix on Wednesday, and it could create some messy conditions at times. Now, for tonight, this is this evening later tonight, we'll see some light rain, even some light snow move into our area. And then we'll see more consistent snow north of our area. And those of you tuning in from Eau Claire, you folks are going to see a lot more snow than the rest of our region. Madison and surrounding areas will see some passing showers, likely in the form of rain because of those temperatures today. Areas to the north of Madison could see some a rain-snow mix, but the consistent snow will stay in central Wisconsin from Eau Claire to Wausau. Even you folks in La Crosse, it will mostly stay to the north of that. And this is going to occur overnight through Monday morning. It will likely clear out by later in the morning on Monday, maybe some lingering flurries for parts of the area. And then we'll see some clear skies by Monday night. But during the day on Monday, we're going to be cloudy once again. So as we look at the snowfall accumulation, again, not really going to see any snowfall accumulation for Madison and surrounding areas. La Crosse could see about a ½ inch. And then again, those of you tuning in from Eau Claire, around 2 to 4 inches are possible for you folks. Now, as we take a look at the high temperature forecast for today, very nice 40s, plenty of cloud cover though, but the winds will be very calm. Overall, a very, very nice day out there, all things considered, I should say. For tomorrow, though, it is going to be a bit cooler. Highs will be in the 30s, more cloud cover, and temperatures will continue to fall from there. We'll have highs in the 20s on Tuesday. But by the time we get to the middle of the week, the story will actually be in the form of precipitation. Now, this is the precip chances because we could see some rain, some snow, even some freezing rain. So incorporating all of that, there is a good chance Wednesday into Wednesday night, and then again for next weekend. So let's take a look at Wednesday's system. It'll start out dry, but then we're going to see kind of a wintry mess move into Wisconsin, some snow in the northern portion, some freezing rain in southern Wisconsin, solid rain to the south of this. And I do want to point out that there are other miles tracking this system to the south, which would bring more snow to southern Wisconsin. But right now, best chance does look like we'll see that freezing rain, which will create very slippery roads Wednesday evening through Thursday morning. We may have to put an alert day for this if this track does continue, because obviously we could be talking about ice accumulations in this regard. So we'll continue to keep an eye on Wednesday's system. La Crosse has a good chance to see snow from this. And then for Saturday's system, it looks like everyone will see snow. Again, Saturday's system is still up in the air, but it does look like there's a good chance of some snow accumulation for then. But overall, we'll see cooler temperatures this week, 20s and 30s after today, and it may get even colder by the end of the 10-day forecast.
All right, Jacob, thank you. Let's get to some more local news. With just 2 months until the state Supreme Court election, both Democrats and Republicans are gearing up for the contest between conservative Brad Schimmel and liberal Susan Crawford. Our Maddie Heimsch has a look at this weekend's canvassing efforts.
Does feel like just yesterday that we were out knocking on doors and canvassing.
Wisconsin's 2025 Supreme Court race has the potential to echo the highly partisan and highly competitive energy that filled the state during the 2024 campaign season.
This is going to be a tough, close race.
While the election is officially nonpartisan, Dane County Circuit Court Judge Susan Crawford is endorsed by Wisconsin's Democratic Party, and Waukesha County Circuit Judge Brad Schimmel is the former Republican Attorney General.
It's a very stark choice,
putting the battleground state back in the national spotlight.
This race is the most important race happening anywhere in the country in 2025.
And encouraging volunteers to get to work. Organizing door-knocking efforts in support of Crawford on Saturday, Julie McGivern says she wants to help energize the voter base.
A lot of people don't understand what the Supreme Court is about and how it affects their day-to-day lives. And we know that this Supreme Court race is going to have a huge impact on the lives of people in Wisconsin.
McGivern's efforts are part of the state Democrats' Weekend of Action canvasses. They come just days after Schimmel finished visiting each of Wisconsin's 72 counties.
There is so much at stake right now.
Reporting in Madison, I'm Maddie Heimsch, News 3 Now.
And Maddie, thank you. If Crawford does win on April 1st, the state's high court will hold a liberal majority for at least 3 more years. If Schimmel wins, the court will return to a conservative lean. A high-speed chase through Columbia County ended with 1 fatality on Saturday. The Columbia County Sheriff's Office says the chase took place on the I-90-94 interstate headed westbound. The vehicle then exited to the I-39 North Interstate. They say it then tried to exit onto Highway 33, but went off the roadway. The vehicle rolled over, ejecting 2 of the people inside. 1 passenger died. 2 others were taken by helicopter to a hospital for life-threatening injuries. The driver was also flown and will be charged with multiple felonies. The sheriff's office says speed and intoxication are factors in this crash. 1 person is dead after another crash in Trempealeau County. Authorities say a vehicle struck a power pole in the township of Lincoln Friday night. First responders found the driver unresponsive. They took the victim to a local hospital where they pronounced them dead, and the name is being withheld at this time. We are coming up now on 720 still ahead. The Grammys are taking place tonight, and we have a preview of what to watch for. Plus, here's a look at today's day in history.
Talk a little more in detail about Wednesday's system. So this is the model that I just showed, bringing in freezing rain across southern Wisconsin, snow in the central and northern portion of the state. And this is going to occur Wednesday afternoon through Wednesday evening, clearing out by Thursday morning, but we likely will still see some slippery roads at that time. Now, if this track is what indeed happens, we'll see some light snow accumulation in southern Wisconsin, but we are expected to see some ice accumulation, possibly up to 1/4 of an inch. Now, this number will likely change a little bit, but we definitely would see slippery roads if this model or if this track happens. But it is possible that the track is a bit further south, and this is the GFS or American model. This brings that track south and mostly snow across our area. But even if this track is what happens, the amount of snow we would see is nothing too extreme. Now, compared to the rest of the winter, you can make a case it is, but we'd only see about 2 to 4 inches of snow with this system. But regardless, we'll still see a little bit of a wintry mess from Wednesday afternoon through Thursday morning, so just be aware of that.
All good things to know. Thank you, Jacob. Well, the Grammys are set to take place tonight in Hollywood, featuring a series of special performances. One of those will be during the annual In Memoriam segment with a star-studded salute to the life and legacy of Quincy Jones. Artists Brad Paisley, Brittany Howard, Cynthia Erivo, Lainey Wilson, and many more are all set to appear.
It's really crazy for me to wrap my head around being invited, much less nominated, much less winning last year, and now getting to perform. It's just keeps getting better and better. I don't know how that happens.
The event will be hosted by Trevor Noah tonight at 7 Central on CBS. Hey, and staying in Hollywood, Beyonce officially announced her Cowboy Carter tours on Saturday night. The singer had teased a big announcement back in January, but held off out of respect for victims of the California wildfires. Beyonce posted about the tour on Instagram, but did not elaborate on ticket sales or any dates. The 32-time Grammy-winning artist will appear at the Grammys, where she is the most nominated artist of the entire night. And while speaking of the Grammys, a young boy from Joplin, Missouri finds himself in Los Angeles this weekend, and he's not there to watch the awards, but rather as a nominee. Anthony Savalello reports.
A wet, murky, gloomy day, but there's a smile shining through it all.
This is real, I can't believe it.
That smile belongs to Tristan Wilder Howlett, a 10-year-old from Joplin.
Yes. The steam engine.
Just like any other 10-year-old boy, he's got a room full of Legos and toys. But in the adjacent room, there's something else on display.
So it was a competition where they announced the awards online. And when we found out we got this, they sent all of the awards to the studio. And when I saw that I got this, I'm like, wait, how did I get this again? Oh, yeah. The duet. The duet. Me and my partner.
However, these awards may soon have to make room for one more.
My mom was in the office, and she said, Tristan, you have a Grammy. I'm like, what is a Grammy? I'm like, wait, is it? What?
I went up and watched the live announcement and did scream very, very, very loud. And the cutest part was he said, I already have a Grammy, because that's what he calls my mom, Grammy. So now he has a Grammy nomination and a Grammy at home.
Tristan's Grammy nomination comes from being a part of the original recording of The Shining Opera.
I was 8 years old at the time, and it was just so much fun getting to meet everybody there. It was just an amazing experience.
It's just one of the long list of projects that Tristan finds himself a part of.
Stay smiling. Also, I'm excited to see Don't Move in theaters. And then another film, a major motion that I did was My Heart Remembers.
But there is one famous franchise Tristan has his eyes on.
I also want to be in a Star Wars film.
He's a man of many talents, but his mother puts it best.
I would describe him as a young Renaissance man. He is capable of being an engineer, being an actor, appreciating poetry, classical music, playing baseball, and, being a normal kid and building.
If you don't believe her, well, he's got the Legos to prove it.
Yes, I like to build with Lego a lot.
And again, the Grammys will take place tonight on CBS at 7 Central Time. Well, there is still a half an hour of news to come this morning. Next, we're going to run through the morning's top headlines. We're back in a bit. Right now, America's most famous groundhog makes his prognostication. Oh, we got the details about it just ahead. Plus, the Democratic National Committee makes a decision on who will lead them, with Wisconsin's Ben Wickler losing out on the race. Then later, international news, President Trump ordering a strike on ISIS in Africa. We got the details straight ahead on Weekend Mornings. And once again, we thank you for joining us here on this Sunday morning. I'm Kyle Pazorski. It is February the 2nd. Let's start with a look at the first warm forecast, and Jacob Montesano has that. Good morning, Jacob.
Good morning, Kyle. Temperatures are pretty mild, and that's going to be the story for much of the day. These temperatures right now pretty close to the average high temperature that we see this time of the year. Lower 30s, upper 20s in central Wisconsin, and the winds are very calm as well. Most of the area seeing wind speeds around 5 to 7 miles per hour. Some areas registering winds as calm, so the wind chill's pretty much the exact same as the actual temperatures. We are dealing with a little bit of fog out there, visibility down to around 1 mile in Mineral Point, but certainly not hazardous, just a little bit noticeable, and the fog is going to clear up shortly. Now, as we take a look at the forecast throughout the day, again, cloudy skies, but very mild and very light wind. So despite the fact that we aren't going to see sunshine, it's going to be a very nice day, all things considered. The average high is 28 degrees, which is actually the first time the average high temperature rose from the previous day since last July. So we're starting to get to that time of year where the temperatures will slowly rise. Now, despite that, today will be the warmest day over the next 10. It will feel more like winter for the rest of the work week. I'll talk more in detail about that and a few chances of precipitation that we'll see this week. All those details will be coming up a little bit later.
All right, Jacob, thank you. We will check back in just a bit. And of course, it is Groundhog Day today, and just a short while ago, we saw son Prairie Jimmy come out of his little cage and give his prediction. We also saw the most famous of all groundhogs, Punxsutawney Phil, come out of his burrow. Here's a little bit from that ceremony.
It's Groundhog Day, and maybe life is on a loop, but I miss my burrow. I miss my coop. So I'm headed back down. There's a shadow up here. Get ready for 6 more weeks of winter this year.
So in Pennsylvania, it is not really cloudy this morning. Thus, Phil has seen his shadow with the sun coming up. But as for Jimmy, well,
Jimmy has now given me his forecast. And he said he's looked around. He's sitting out here in the square. Sometimes the sun is behind the buildings, but today he can see that there's no question about it. He looked around, he did not see his shadow, therefore he says early spring.
And while this is all fun, you should not take these forecasts at face value, as NOAA recently has put out a publication of the most accurate groundhogs. Sun Prairie was at number 6 on the list with 60%, and Punxsutawney Phil barely cracked the list at number 17 with a dismal 35% accuracy. All right, well, on Saturday, the Democratic National Committee held an election to name their next party chair. Among the candidates running for the job included Wisconsin State Chair Ben Wickler. He received just over 134 votes, losing to Minnesota Party Chair Ken Martin, who himself received a little more than 246. Wickler will remain in Wisconsin to lead the party, saying in a statement that he thanks those who worked on his campaign and urged his supporters to look ahead. Staying here in Wisconsin, we are less than 2 months out until the state's Supreme Court election, and right now both Democrats and Republicans are working hard to gain support from possible voters. On Saturday, Democrats organized a canvassing effort in the Madison area, While the election is officially nonpartisan, Dane County Circuit Court Judge Susan Crawford is endorsed by the Wisconsin Democratic Party in her effort to beat conservative Brad Schimmel.
It's a very stark choice. This race is the most important race happening anywhere in the country in 2025.
Now, Saturday's canvass comes just days after Schimmel finished visiting each of Wisconsin's 72 counties. If Crawford wins, the state's high court will hold a liberal majority for at least another 3 years. If Schimmel wins, the court will return to a conservative lean. The Trump administration on Saturday doubled down on its plan to impose tariffs on 3 major trading partners. The president officially signed the tariffs Saturday, slapping a 25% tax on all goods coming from Mexico and China, as Mexico and Canada, as well as a 10% tariff on Chinese goods coming into the United States. However, the president said he will only slap a 10% tariff on Canadian energy to avoid disruption to U.S. consumers. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Saturday did not mince any words when speaking about these tariffs.
This is a choice that, yes, will harm Canadians, but beyond that, it will have real consequences for you, the American people.
President Trump says the U.S. is flexing its economic muscle to get Mexico, Canada, and China to live up to their promises to stop the flow of illegal immigrants as well as fentanyl into the United States. In some international news, President Trump on Saturday ordered a military airstrike on a senior Islamic State leader and others from the organization in Somalia. For almost a month now, Puntland security forces have reportedly been advancing on Islamic State hideouts in the region. An official in the Somalia president's office, speaking on a condition of anonymity, confirmed that Saturday's strikes took place and said Somalia's government welcomed this move. We are coming up now on 7:35. Still ahead this morning, how a local author as well as an illustrator are honoring Black history. You're watching Weekend Mornings.
Taking a look at the precipitation chances over the next 7 days, this accounts for snow, rain, and even some freezing rain that's in the forecast. You can see that there are a few good chances of precipitation. Now, we saw some light flurries this morning, could see some of that tonight, but for the most part, we're not going to see a lot of precipitation the next couple of days. Big focus is Wednesday and then again on Saturday. I'll talk about the Wednesday one a little bit later. I want to touch on next weekend because right now the European and the GFS, or the American model, the two long-range models, are in good agreement that we could be seeing some snowfall and potentially some accumulating snowfall Saturday. Now, the snow looks to move in Friday night, but as we get into Saturday, we could possibly be talking about snow throughout the entire day. Now, obviously, this is very early. A lot can change between now and then, but we are keeping an eye on the potential for some accumulating snow Saturday. So that was the European model. In this situation, this is the ice accumulation forecast we're going to see Wednesday. I apologize. So here's a look at the GFS model for that Friday to Saturday system. Again, we could be seeing that move in early Saturday morning and continue for much of the day. So we'll continue updating the forecast accordingly, but right now, just be aware we could see some accumulating snow on Saturday.
All right, Jacob, thank you. Well, turning to more local news this morning, we are going to be talking about Black History Month. February is, of course, Black History Month, and a local author as well as an illustrator are celebrating with a book about the late civil rights activist John Lewis. The pair held a book signing at the Mystery to Me bookstore in Madison on Saturday, and our Tanisha Shaw has more.
And so to be able to do this and do it about John Lewis is just an honor and just a really cool experience.
Growing up in Wisconsin, Jerry Jordan didn't see a lot of people that looked like him in books.
Yeah, I didn't learn a lot about Black history or any officials outside of course, like Dr. King or Malcolm X. I didn't really learn about anybody growing up. My knowledge came just from being an adult, reading, watching the news.
Jordan is the illustrator of Unstoppable John. He worked alongside author Pat Zelo Miller to create the book.
I got inspired to write this book after I saw John Lewis give his acceptance speech after winning the National Book Award.
Unstoppable John highlights the importance of public libraries during a time when everybody couldn't browse these shelves and rent a book for free.
I read every book that John Lewis had written. I read his collection of essays. I looked at newspapers from Alabama when he was growing up and a lot of pictures from the 50s online. He talked about wanting to get a library card when he was a teenager and being told no. And that inspired me to do a lot more research, and I realized what an impact books and libraries had on his life.
The Wisconsin duo says this book is another example of why understanding history is important.
I think today kids would think, well, anybody can go get a library card because in their short experience, anybody can. And I think it's important for them to know that it wasn't always that way. John Lewis was noteworthy because he was so committed to the idea of peaceful protest. I mean, people treated him horribly much of the time, and he just basically stood there and took it. And it was a conscious decision not to meet their anger with anger of his own. He decided that no matter what people did, he was not going to fight back. He was just going to ask for what he thought was right, and I really respect that.
Reporting in Madison, Tanasia Shaw, News 3 Now.
And next this morning, Andrew will check in with Saturday's sports highlights. Plus, Jacob is back with the full Forsworn forecast on this Groundhog Day. We're back.
Good morning, everybody. Here's a final look at the 3 things you need to know. We're going to see very mild conditions today, but then temperatures are expected to cool down starting tomorrow and continuing to cool down for much of the week. We'll have temperatures back to more winter-like levels, and then we have that wintry mix expected for Wednesday. Now, for today, we aren't going to see any precipitation during the day, but after sunset during the evening, we'll see some light rain and snow move into Wisconsin, and then during the overnight hours, there'll be more consistent snow, especially off to the north and east, consistent precipitation, some in the rain, some in snow. And for those of you tuning in from Eau Claire, more consistent snow is expected in central Wisconsin that could bring some accumulation. But even La Crosse, you folks will be on the southern end of that, so it'll mostly stay off to the north. The northern portion of Madison's DMA could see about a ½ inch of snow, but for the most part, it'll be impacting just the central portion of Wisconsin during the overnight hours tonight and into Monday morning. But by the time we get to the later morning hours Monday, it will clear out with cloudy skies during the day for tomorrow, and then we'll see clear skies by tomorrow night. So looking at the accumulation forecast, again, Madison and surrounding areas will not see anything, but those of you tuning in from Eau Claire, possibly around 2 to 4 inches, maybe a ½ inch at most for La Crosse, but for the most part, everywhere north of La Crosse, north of the Dells, or south of that, won't be seeing any precipitation. Now, as we take a look at the temperature forecast, very mild today, but 30s for tomorrow, 20s for Tuesday, and then for much of the week, we'll see highs in the 20s and 30s, so it'll definitely be more winter-like. Now, I want to focus on that precipitation chance for Wednesday. Looks like it'll move in Wednesday afternoon and evening, bringing in some snow for the northern portion of the area, freezing rain for southern Wisconsin, and this is expected to last for much of the evening into the overnight hours, likely producing very slippery road conditions. It'll clear out by around sunrise Thursday, but we likely will continue to see some slippery roads because of that freezing rain or snowfall. Still a bit unclear how much of each we will see. But if that track stays true, we are likely going to see some ice accumulation. And here's a look at that ice accumulation forecast for now. These numbers are definitely likely going to change a little bit, but potentially around 1/4 inch of freezing rain. So we could be talking about very, very slippery roads. We may have to put an alert day in the forecast for this. The reason we're not yet is because there's still a lot of difference between the models. And if it does dip further south, the amount of snowfall that we would see won't be too much. If we do see mostly snow from that system. And that's the case for you folks in La Crosse, mostly snow, but not expecting a lot of accumulation. But for next weekend, there's another snow system that will move through, this time likely producing only snowfall, and we could be seeing some accumulation with that. We also will see some cooler temperatures for the start of next week, where highs will be in the lower 20s, possibly teens. Overnight lows could be in the single digits. So after today, it's definitely going to be more winter-like with a few chances of some wintry precipitation.
When it comes to scoring the rock, the Wisconsin men are having one of their most prolific seasons ever. But to start their game yesterday against Northwestern, the Badgers, simply put, could not hit water if they fell out of a boat. 12 minutes in, and Wisconsin trailing 12-7. They had more turnovers than baskets made at this point. But John Tonje, he turned it on. Hits the three, which led the sixth-year senior to go on a heater. He scored 16 straight for Wisconsin, giving Bucky a chance in the second half, where they trailed by as many as 9. And that is where Carter Gilmore comes in. The senior originally went to Arrowhead. He had the half of his life in the second, puts back Tanjay's miss and gives Wisconsin a 54-52 lead. But he was not done. No, Gilly was going silly. Hits his third triple of the second half from Steph Curry range. He had a career-high 15 points, all of them scored in that second half, and he was certainly the difference maker in this one. Wisconsin outscored the Wildcats 50-38 in the second half, and they get back to their winning ways with a 75-69 victory. When you are Wisconsin women's hockey, the expectation is perfection. But for their standards, this last week has been kind of rough. They tied St. Cloud State last weekend and needed overtime to skate past Duluth in their series opener against the Bulldogs. The women are 25-1-2 on the season, and they expect to win every game and do it in a landslide. Yesterday, though, was more of the same troubles. They were held scoreless through 2 periods, but 8 minutes into the third, they finally break through. Layla Edwards lights the lamp, her team-leading 26th goal of the season. Worth another look, and we've got a tie game. But as we talked about, the Badgers have no interest in losing and even less interest in tying. A few minutes later, they smell blood. Sarah Wozniewicz whips one past the goaltender, and Wisconsin comes back to win it 2-1 the final score. As for the Badger men, it was a similar setup with a very different result. This game, too, was scoreless through 2 periods, but that changed in a hurry. Minnesota netted a trio of goals in a flurry, leaving Wisconsin needing a whole lot of offense in no time flat. They get one back here. Ryan Botterill puts it home, but that's all the offense that Bucky could muster. Wisconsin loses 4-1, meaning the Gophers took all 4 games in this year's Border Battle Series. And speaking of men's hockey, the place to be is Pooley Sports Bar this Monday night. Badger defenseman Ben Dexheimer will be there, and so will our Zach Hanley. Join us for a live taping of this week's Wisconsin Huddle. The taping starts at 6:45 right there at Pooley's. That's your morning sports fix. Have a sublime Sunday.
Thank you, Andrew. And still ahead here on Weekend Mornings, it is Groundhog Day. We'll share what the rodents are saying this morning. Plus, here's a look at what's to come on For the Record.
Hey Kyle, coming up this morning on For the Record, we look ahead to that February primary, starting our series of sit-downs with the candidates running to be Wisconsin's top educator. Ellie La Liberté sits down with Brittany Kinzer, running to be the superintendent of public instruction. Plus, we also look at the results from yesterday's vote where Wisconsin Democratic Party Chair Ben Wickler lost his bid to lead the national party. That's all ahead this morning on For the Record at 10:30.
And finally this morning, of course, it is Groundhog Day. Here in southern Wisconsin, son Prairie Jimmy came out of his little cage this morning to give his prediction, and we also saw the most famous of all groundhogs, Punxsutawney Phil, come out of his burrow. Here's what Phil predicted.
It's Groundhog Day, and maybe life is on a loop, but I miss my burrow. I miss my coop. So I'm headed back down. There's a shadow up here. Get ready for 6 more weeks of winter this year.
Lots of excitement there in Punxsutawney at the Gobbler's Knob. It's not really cloudy there today. Thus, Phil has seen his shadow. As for Jimmy, well, he is something else.
Jimmy has now given me his forecast, and he said he's looked around. He's sitting out here in the square. Sometimes the sun is behind the buildings, but today he can see that there's no question about it. He looked around, he did not see his shadow, therefore he says early spring.
All right, 2 rodents down, 1 Jacob to go. What do you say?
Well, based on the next 10 days, it's hard to say for sure. But, we are going to see some colder temperatures, but again, way too early to say for sure. If I had to make a guess, I would say probably early spring. I mean, I just think year after year it trends in that direction.
You said in one of our staff meetings the other day that a dry January typically means there's going to be more snow in February.
It could mean that, but also what exactly is like the starting point? Because 6 more weeks of winter would be in like middle of March, but like early spring, is that just like the beginning of March? I'm actually not sure where that date.
They're just groundhogs.
Lies. They are just groundhogs. I don't know. Based on trends, probably in early spring though.
All right. Thank you, Jacob, and thank you all for watching. Have a great Groundhog Day.